Finally, we come to the view model, which is really the focal point of coding up an MVVM application. The primary responsibility of a view model is to provide data to the view so the view can put it on the screen and, if appropriate, let the user interact with and change that data. The other key responsibility of a view model is to encapsulate the interaction logic for a view. That does not mean that all of the logic of the application should go into the view model, which would just create a new place that separation of concerns is being violated. But what should go there is the appropriate sequencing of calls to make the right thing happen based on whatever input just came from the user or whatever change has occurred in the view. The view model should also manage any navigation logic, such as deciding when it is time to navigate to a different view, and any cleanup it needs to do if it's being navigated away from. And if there's any logic associated with managing the client application state, the view model can manage those changes. Now, in terms of the data that the view model provides to the view, there's really three kinds of data to consider. The first is exposing model objects directly through view model properties, meaning something like a customer property on a view model that exposes a reference to a customer model object that could be a whole object graph itself. This is called exposing the model objects. View models can also expose what are called wrapped model objects, meaning properties exposed from the view model that contain data that came from the model but are not model object references directly. This is done to either simplify the structure of the data for presentation purposes or to transform model object values into something that's more conducive for what the view wants to present. One example would be if a model object contains an enumerated status flag. The view model might transform this into a Boolean flag to drive some aspect of the display, such as showing an alert to the customer if it's in an overdue status. Another example would be if the data needed for display was scattered in many places in the object model, but you wanted to present a tabular summary of those bits of data through a collection property for data binding in a grid. These two approaches are called wrapping the model object. The last kind of data that a view model will often manage is client application state. Things like, is the client application online or offline? Or is the user logged in? Flags or properties related to this state can be exposed by the view model to drive the presentation of the view, and may often come from .NET APIs about the client execution context or client-side services that are managing that state.